Good afternoon. Welcome to this webinar on HR related issues in the post pandemic scenario as far as the microfinance sector is concerned. Friends, we thank all of you for registering for this webinar. What I can share from the microfinance sector perspective is that though all sectors and all industries run on the basis of their human resources, for us in the microfinance industry, as we all know, our loan officers and the branch personnel at the grassroots level, they are our foot soldiers. They bring us the business and they run the enterprises for us. So it's important to look at what are the issues which they are facing at the field level, and what are the problems, and in what way the HR related issues will shape up in the post-COVID scenario for our entire microfinance sector. To discuss these and the broader issues, we are fortunate to have with us an eminent panel. As a lead resource person, we have Mr. Sridhar Ganesh, who is a well-known HR expert with vast years of experience in the private sector and also in the finance sector. He is on the Equitas Small Finance Bank as an independent director, and now he has his own company which looks at the HR and the related issues. Then we have with us CEO of one of the biggest microfinance institutions in the country, Mr. Uday Kumar, CEO and MD of Credit Access Grameen Limited, based in Bangalore. Mr. Uday Kumar brings with him vast years of experience in the banking sector, both in public sector, private sector, and with the foreign banks. And we are glad that Mr. Uday is there with us to share his perspective as a CEO. And then we have Subir Roy Chowdhury, Chief HR Officer of Sa-Dhan Credit Care Network, another big MFI based in the north, but also has a vast network across the country. And Subir has a vast experience in the HR field, in the financial sector with the ICICI Group, as well as with the Magma Group and all. So in that way, I don't think we will find a better equipped panel to deal with this HR and the related issues. Now I would request Subir, as the head of HR of an important MFI, to start with his perspective. Then after Subir, then we will go to Uday Kumar as a CEO, what he would like to say. Then as an independent expert and a person who has seen the HR outside from the sector, we would like to bring in Mr. Sridhar Ganesh. Thank you. Now over to Subir.
Thank you, Dr. Satish, and good afternoon, everyone. Good afternoon to the rest of the panelists, Sridhar sir and Uday sir. So today we are going to talk about the post-COVID era, post-pandemic declared post-lockdown, how the MFI industry is shaping up and what are the challenges of HR. So I'm going to structure my discussion into two parts. One, I'm going to talk about first what are the concerns that HR is having or HR is facing, and second, I'm going to talk about how we can address that with the support of business. How we can support that. So first thing, let me just start saying that the biggest concern that today HR faces is the security and safety of our employees. For example, most of the MFIs, as Dr. Satish said, we are a very people-intrinsic business. Unlike other businesses, our entire business model runs with on people. Okay, because customers, for example, we have a 35 lakh customer base and similar number of bases with Uday sir's company, with Grameen. It is very important that the connect with customers are established, and that is done by our loan officers. And so hence, we are a very, very people-intrinsic business, and people is a key to our success. So how do we instill safety, security, and address their concerns at this point in time will be a very big challenge for the HR to manage at this point in time. Next, of course, at these times, management will have its own expectations, and so will the employees. How do you balance both the expectations and because management, of course, will expect that for example, today the collections are some of the important areas that we need to work upon. And with lockdown, with moratorium being announced, customers are not paying. Some customers are paying, some customers are not paying. How do we balance the expectation of management vis-a-vis that of employees? Employees are, how do we tell them that yes, collection is important. You still have to go to the field, or you still have to build a connect with the people and ensure the business is running. Business continues. So that expectation matching of both the ends is something that HR has to balance. Third important aspect and is that how do you upskill and reskill our people? We are talking about a paradigm shift in of MFI. MFI, if you know about MFI, or people who have been in MFI is all about more of a traditional model of doing business, where it's more of an employee connect, in customer connect through personal interaction. How do we move from those traditional aspects to a more modern, futuristic model? Is something, so it needs a paradigm shift in the minds of employees, as an organization. So, and to do that, one of the most important factors is to how do we upskill and reskill our people. And the last aspect I would say is how do you manage cost? There will be cost pressures coming in. There will be OPEX issues. There will be cash flows issues coming in the near term, short term, mid term. How do you manage those costs? And HR will have to play a very important role in managing that, because 70% of our cost, or 65% of our cost, is your employee cost. Okay, so these are some of the challenges that HR has to manage. If I have to look at how do we address these issues, so what I have thought is that we can address the issue in a simple way, like the manufacturing sector operates. We have a concept called BOT, build, operate, and transform. Similar thing, we have to bring it in MFI. We can name it create, execute, and then monitor or measure. So CM, we can call it CEM, create, execute, and measure. And so when we talk about create, so we have to understand what do we need to create. We need to create policies and processes which are employee friendly. We need to create processes which will help people to upskill themselves. We need to understand what are the concerns of employees. We need to talk about how do we address those concerns on a daily basis. Because as I said, employee motivation will be a very important factor to get going. We have huge workforce. We have most of the companies has more than 5,000, 6,000, 10,000 workforce at the field. It is very important to keep them motivated on a daily basis. So how do we communicate them? What are the policies? What are the employee-friendly policies that we can look at? Can we look at our insurance for them at this point in time, a COVID insurance covered? At least when they're in the field, we give them the we give them the comfort, saying that yes, don't worry, we are behind you. I think things like if something happens to the people, some of and we keep on hearing someone in the branch is sick. How fast can you actually ensure that that person is taken care of? He's separated from the others. He's given the treatment, right treatment. He's given the right support, and not only to him but also to the people who are in the branch. How do we give support to them? What are the policies in terms of your branch, managing your branch upkeep? How do you manage your branch hygiene? How do you sanitize your branch? How do you those are policies and processes. So SOPs has to be written, and they have to be then followed. So these are then of course create policies around digital learning. Create policies about how can you make it exciting for the people to learn things digitally. So these are some of the things. Culturally, I believe also very important. How do you empower our guys? It will now move from when the people have to be empowered. People have to feel that yes, it is my company, and in tough times, when the business is going tough, how can I contribute positively to the organization? So create policies and processes around it is the first point. How do you execute? It's not only about creation, but it's also about how do you execute those plans, execute that to the last mile. Because here, we might be sitting in a corporate office in Delhi, or someone in Bangalore, someone in Hyderabad. What is important that my last mile manager sits out of 2,000 kilometers apart. And how do you communicate to that last mile? Most people, here the people in microfinance may not have email IDs, but yes, how do we communicate them through their tabs or their mobile phones? Maybe use WhatsApp. WhatsApp is a very important medium to communicate. So as long as the communication reaches that last mile person, we have to ensure that that happens. Okay, and not only that, I was talking about the e-learning. Now we have to look at basically a digital or a onboarding or a digital e-learning process, learning process, which has to come in the microfinance sector, which is completely new to us. We have never done that early in the past. Now, how do you, for example, emphasize on digital learning to those people who actually are in the tier 3, tier 4, tier 5 cities? Remember, we were also, while we work with the bottom of the pyramid, our people also come from the tier 3 and tier 4 cities. So it is very important that we create something which can create excitement in them. And you have to shift the paradigm. There's a paradigm shift, which I said. You have to shift the paradigm. Then you have to create excitement in people to get into e-learning. We may not convert a completely PPT into a e-learning. That's not the way out. But yes, how can you use small things like online, making small snippets of online modules of 50-20 minutes. You should think of something like, if you browse Facebook or LinkedIn every day for 15-20 minutes, that's spare time. Can the employee invest in learning a small thing about his or her work? That if you can create those small modules through animations, through basically storytelling. Storytelling is a very important thing in e-learning nowadays. Can we create stories and make them in such a way that it becomes like a storytelling for them? It becomes so easy for them to understand. So these are some of the ways that we can look at implementing, executing our plans. And another important thing which I believe is which is not replaceable is we still have to build that employee connect. Now, how do you build employee connect? People may not be in the offices. Some people, while the back-end functions can still operate from home and work from home, the front-ending guys will have to still be in the field. How do you connect with the people? Your visits will be limited. Your travel will be limited nowadays. So constant communication, through different mediums, communication through phone will be a very important aspect of HR. HR will have to continuously communicate on what is happening around, keep people aware of what is happening around them, make them aware of what is expected from them, talk to them about the expectation from their job. And so these are something which we have to continuously do on a daily basis. So HR will have to play a very important role in getting down to the last mile. Okay, and of course, whatever we do, remember at these times, with the tougher times, the HR guys will have to put themselves in the shoes of those people who are at the ground. We cannot be on 30,000 feet. We can't be at even 10,000 feet. We have to be on the ground. We have to listen to the boys of the ground. We have to understand, we have to empathize with them, and then respond to them, to their queries. We can't just have an utopian answer saying that this is what it is. We have to be grounded. We have to be very, very careful in what we communicate to the people, because that's where they get motivated. It's how you communicate. They get motivated or demotivated in the way you communicate. So HR has a big role out there. Now, the last part, of course, is we have created, we have implemented, but then how do we measure them? So measuring, I believe, in the short term or in the mid term, you might not get the desired output from the people, because of the challenges of COVID, because the challenges of whatever happening in the economic scenario, there'll be challenges. What is important is that we need to look at how much effort people are putting in. We need to measure the efforts that people are putting in rather than only looking at output. Output, of course, will be there. Output can be linked to the incentives. The incentives plans can change. The fixed to variable ratios can change. We may look at giving higher incentive to people who are performing well at this times. But I think change of behaviors are very important. It's very important that we understand, we cascade the information to people and make them understand what is expected of them, and ensure that they start putting their efforts in the right direction. Even if the output doesn't come in the short term, they will come if the efforts are put in the right direction. I think these are here. And of course, last I said was cost. Another important factor for HR to look at is how do we manage cost? How do we manage? How do you look at wasteful expenditures? How do you eliminate those wasteful expenditures? Employees should be the last one to be touched. By looking at, how can we look at branches, branch rationalizations, regional offices, because not every people will come to the branches now. How do you look at that? And how do you look at other expenses? How do you look at traveling expenses to be curtailed? So on and so forth. So these are areas to be looked at from a cost point of view. So that's something that I had to say. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Subir, for a very, what we can say, bird's eye view perspective from a HR head. But apart from the HR head, the CEO will has to have a more, what we can say, more broader perspective of the entire institution. So now I request Mr. Uday Kumar, MD CEO of Grameen Kota, for his interaction and inputs.
Thank you, Satish. Happy to be here. I think it's always pleasure to interact with the audience like you, as well as on the subject of microfinance and HR and people management is one of my core subject actually, because this business is a people's business. You have to run the business keeping in mind that people are most important to manage this business. So business has gone topsy-turvy for all businesses due to this pandemic, and microfinance is no exception. And in this COVID unprecedented pandemic. So lockdown has happened, and which impacted many activities, many lives. So we can actually go on talking about who are all impacted, but cash flow is one which is impacted to many, including our own organizations, our own customers, our own employees, everybody. So employee health is another one which Subir talked about. It is not just employee health; it is about customer health also. In microfinance, it's a customer and the employees are the most important key stakeholders in this business. And between these two, the entire business runs around. Awareness about health, which is to be created for the customers. Awareness about health to be created to employees. And for customers, it's not just physical health, it is economic health and the mental health. So I think that is most important, I mean, including our employees. Physical health, mental health, and the financial health of our employee is also very, very important here during this time of unprecedented period. However, all of our businesses are built on a long-term vision. I don't think a short-term COVID impact should not change the long-term vision of any organization. So every organization is built on a long-term basis, not for 2 months, 3 months, or 1 year kind. So expect the hurdles are expected to come. Pandemic is one of the hurdles, and every hurdle will make the organization much stronger in its long-term vision. This is my firm belief, and I don't think MFIs are exception to this. I think we will be much stronger for this hurdle what we cross. So what is that important for all of us is to have the resilient business model. Resilient business model will help you. Good time anyway it will work for bad time. So our model has to be built to ensure to manage such hurdles like pandemic, or it could be demonetization, which we faced 3 years back. These are I mean, inevitable. One or other hurdles keep coming for every businesses, and we are not the exceptions. Resilient business is possible with two important factors. One is loyal employees, another is loyal customers. How the loyal customer is built? Loyal customers can be built only with loyal employees, because who are the people behind building a loyal customer segment for any businesses? So that is why it rounds back that loyal employees is the most important key factor for any resilient business model. So that is why microfinance, which is most people-intensive business, with 80 to 90% of the battalion can make or break the organization, who are the frontline soldiers. So they are the people who are really building the company, or building the entire pillars for the vision of the company. And who will be interacting with customers, building the portfolio, collecting the money, managing the quality of portfolio. That 80-90% of the people are the important. Who management has very little control other than managing these 80-90% of people to encourage, motivate, to make, motivate these makers to make and not break. So that is important. So all our job as a management in microfinance institutions is to ensure the motivation to all our employees in the ground. So it's a universal truth. No, any motivated employee can contribute more than 200% over a demotivated employee. And the loyalty factor is a great contributor for motivation. I think this is universal truth, and we need to be very careful and thoughtful about this in this bad time. It's very important, and very some of the important things I think Subir already told, which are important for the employee point of view. I will talk few about that, but not everything which he already spoke about. So a few things, management need to know what should not be done also, not just what should do. So there are a couple of things what we should not do, also very important. We need to find all possible opportunities to ensure employees are motivated and come back to work. Okay, family of the employee need to be convinced that my son or daughter is in the safe hands of the MFI. If the family is ready to send, means they are convinced that the MFI will take care of his son or daughter very well in safe condition in this situation. That is most important. That is where the employees' safety, health protection is very important. So one is that insurance. We talked about insurance for employee. It's not just insurance. What happens if COVID case positive comes to my employee? How the company will take care of it? So that's most important. If family is convinced with that, they will not have any hesitance to send their employee to work. So there has to be a complete assurance from the company to ensure that the health and safety of employees managed. They are motivated well. Okay, so that is what important. Another one is a cost management. That's what one of the things always comes in the mind of management whenever there is a unprecedented situation. First thing they will look at cost management. Yes, we must manage the cost, but we should evaluate all the operating costs where we can manage without enhancing it or where we can reduce. We have to evaluate all the opportunities to enhance the efficiency. We have to evaluate all the opportunities to make employees more productive. We have to cut all invisible expenses, I would say. It is time to process, errors in process, delay in process, risk mitigations, enhance controls, etc. These are the invisible costs it will hit to us. We need to work on. Management is worried about cash flow, so we have to manage that as well. But in the meantime, management need to worry about the cash flow of the employee of the company, who are the main assets, who can really contribute to survey the company. So his management need to be cautious about the incentives and the salary of the employee. Management should not touch their incentive or salary. Their cash flow should be intact, because 2 months there is no businesses, no disbursement, no collections, no incentive, which is not correct. The first two are correct, but last is not correct. We should ensure that employee cash flow is intact. That's very important. Employee has served the year at 1920, and all of us have gained out of it. The increment or a bonus are part of what they served for 1920. I think it owes to them, and we should actually support that and then give to them, and then we should not deny such expenses, which is very important for employees. That is why we should not touch the employer benefits, and we should not we should have enough patience that employee will rebuild your organization if we could take care of the employee safety, benefits, and we are able to motivate and encourage them continuously. These employees will build this company back to us. So we have faced many such situations in the last 1 decade, whether it is Andhra episode or the demonetization. So we all came back very strongly, and I firmly believe that the industry will come back strongly with more resiliency and with more power by experiencing this kind of situation. I strongly believe that we will be back strongly. So I don't have any doubt in my mind on it. So I will leave it here right now. Maybe I'll come back later. Thank you.
Thank you, Uday Kumar, for a very good perspective as a CEO, I should say, a very progressive CEO of a very progressive microfinance institution. Now over to Mr. Sridhar Ganesh for his perspective and inputs as a person who has been seeing HR in the both in the industrial sector, financial sector, and overall economy.
Thank you, Dr. Satish, first for inviting me to this webinar. I think it's a privilege and a pleasure to be here. I just want to make 2 corrections. I'm happy with your very generous introduction, but they're not necessarily true. One is I'm not an expert. The only sin I have committed is I have spent about more than 4 decades in HR and industry. So therefore, the labeling of an expert is something I feel very extremely awkward about. The second is I don't run my own company. If my boss got to know this, I don't know. I mean, he might not be very happy, and I may not be there tomorrow. So this company is run by Mr. Arun Jain. I happen to help him as the head of the organization in terms of digital HR systems. So that is. I thought I must make these corrections for the purpose of record and for sharing with your audience, so they should not get the impression that I'm one of those entrepreneurs. I'm not. I wish I could be, and I was, but I'm not. So with that, I just want to get back to, I think, the 2 colleagues of mine from the MFI industry have spoken eloquently, I think, in terms of what is required to be done. I think if I were to put it in a certain framework, I would simply say that the psychological, physical, and the economic well-being of employees need to be protected. And I think we have to start with the psychological well-being, because that is what fires one's efficiency and performance in an organization. So I think positivity, joy, and happiness, feeling of security, for example, COVID insurance, communication. I think these are drivers of psychological safety and well-being. Physical is about the various guidelines and sanitation, sanitary conditions, and so on and so forth. Hygiene, personal hygiene, washing of hands, and whatever WHO guidelines are. Providing a helpline. I think all this has been somewhat touched in terms of what people have said. Economic, I think Uday sir has talked eloquently about the need to balance the employee customer as the heroes of microfinance. Compensation should not be at risk, and there must be a more compassion in terms of incentives, given the very difficult and challenging conditions that they are working in. So I think that has been broadly covered. What I would like to do, though, is just go behind this COVID and go behind this pandemic as to what is the transformation it has actually brought about. So I just want to cover 4 main points in terms of that. I believe a very fundamental transformation has happened. It may not be so evident in the MFI sector, because the MFI sector still has to rely on its frontline employees, the loan officers, who still work through the way they have worked even before the pandemic, except that they are under much more stress and strain because of the conditions threatening their health and the concerns of the family, which Uday sir covered in quite an exhaustive manner. But having said that, let me go slightly outside as to what is happening in terms of the industrial environment. First, I think the pandemic has redefined office. Previously, we used to have 2 separate entities in our life. One was an home and the other was an office. And at 8:30 or 9 o'clock in the morning, we used to get dressed up specially to go to this office. I think that division, that line, that boundary has got broken. Today, people are by and large working from home, which is their office as well as their home. So the lines have got blurred. Because the boundary conditions are blurred, there are certain requirements here from business to business in terms of what they need to define. They need to define, for example, an exit time for employees. Because it is at work from home, I've heard many people tell me that, I get calls at 9 o'clock in the evening. Emails are expected to be responded to at 11 in the night. I think these lines need to be brought back to some degree of, what one would consider good order. So I think that is a big shift that has happened. When does work actually start and when does it close is important. The other dimension, and this I acknowledge this point to Uday sir, which is the point he was making, particularly for women employees, because they have a particularly in the Indian context, as men, we generally don't go and work in the kitchen. So it's somewhat different here that compared to the West. So the woman of home has to not only manage the kitchen and the other things that goes with whatever support that she's providing, either to the parents or the in-laws, which is even more special, and then to the children and so on. But she also got to go and work. So therefore, there is a very clear sort of pressure in terms of what we need to look at in terms of our lady employees. And so I'm making this point just to bring that sensitivity in terms of what has happened in terms of the COVID and the pandemic. So that's the first point I wanted to make, which is the redefinition of the office. And very often we fail to recognize this, and we still think, because that is what most businesses did. They were working in an office, and after the 23rd or 24th of March, they started working from home without realizing that the dimensions of this change and how it sort of impacts every human being. So that's the first point. The second point I want to make is, classically, previously, people used to go to work. Now, work is coming to people. So there's a big shift in this, because we are not going to work anymore. Work is coming to us, because that was our private self, that was our private space that we were in. So that is a big change. And this has necessarily made businesses define roles which can work on a remote basis, which can work on a hybrid, remote, on-site basis. Again, this may not be particularly relevant to the MFI sector, but it is applicable even in the MFI sector to slightly more senior levels of employees. It has also made people who are totally non-remote. So I think there are some definitions which have changed, and I think businesses need to recognize, and the leadership needs to recognize, that there are these three modes of work that seeming to emerge, and businesses are almost starting to celebrate that we never saw this remote. Now we are seeing this remote. Several of our costs can be saved. So this is a new release of energy, new enlightenment, new insight that is emerging very clearly. What this also means is challenges of talent and challenges of talent acquisition have got somewhat diluted and diminished. Previously, you necessarily had to acquire somebody to your physical space of the office, which you don't have to do now, because we have learned the game that we can work from anywhere. And therefore, talent acquisition becomes a little more easier in terms of whom you're recruiting and what you need to do with that person and the skills and the resources that they bring. I think it has also encouraged this new breed of gig workers, as we call them in the IT sector. But I think gig workers are there everywhere, where you take people on short-term working hour contracts and not necessarily permanent employees. And they are able to provide you a certain service and provide you a certain value to what you need. And they just work with 3-4 different employers. I think we are going to see a big rise of gig workers across businesses, including, I believe, MFI. So therefore, this is a change that has happened in this work from home, which is essentially work coming to your home rather than people at home going to work. So that, I think, is the second big change that the pandemic has brought about. Continuing in this order, I think businesses have to now reconstruct the processes in terms of how work is done, what work can be got rid of, what work needs to be necessarily be achieved. I think this whole purpose of whole business of reorganization has to be initiated. There is also the need for technology. For example, the social processes in an organization, the water cooler gossip, the coffee break, the conference room, the meeting rooms, the endless hours spent in the meeting room, all this has come to a bit of an end. So how do we, with this technology of virtual working, how do we ensure some of these artifacts are still available? Because these are important artifacts. Human nature is to gossip. Human nature is to talk about something which is important to an individual. So we can't just get rid of it. So how do we create these? And I think technology has many opportunities that we can be leveraged in terms of breakaway rooms, private spaces, and so on and so forth. I don't have an answer for coffee and tea. I think that cost has to be borne by the employee, but I don't know if companies can subsidize that expense. But perhaps Uday sir will think of it as a resilient business model in terms of what can be done. But I think organizations will have to spend considerable amount of time in creating these artifacts that are necessary, because employees were productive and engaged and were happy and joyous with all this that were flowing together. So I think we need to find answers. I think we are learning this process, and we will, I think, find answers in the next couple of months as the pandemic continues. Or even without the pandemic, I think we'll still find answers. Hopefully the situation will be a non-pandemic, but a work from home continuing. I think that is what I see as a scenario and a future for, by and large, for industry. There are exceptions like MFI, the front end, which cannot work from home. It's not possible, but perhaps technology and tablets and so on and so forth can help. Also manufacturing, for example, you can't produce bicycles or cars at home. So you need a plant, you need something physically there to make those machines work. So given those exceptions, I think a lot of things will come back in terms of work from home. I think the last point I want to make in terms of what the pandemic has done and the implications for HR and the implications for leadership is communication and relationships. We used to almost, the face-to-face contact has gone away. The pat on the back is missing. The eye contact is not there on a day-to-day basis. So I think the only substitution that I can think of is very frequent and engaging communication in as transparent a manner as possible, so that people feel a sense of inclusion. People feel that I'm involved, because it's no point in doing a communication which is one way. I think there is a challenge, therefore, in virtual setting, in a virtual space, how do you engage people in your communication, in your dialogue? I think it is something that leaders and HR specialists need to think about in terms of how do they build this as a mechanism, because this is something which was happening and is highly recommended, more so because we are working in virtual settings where people tend to feel very lonely, they feel stressful, they feel there's a sense of insecurity because of the pandemic as a disease. So that is one major threat. And the other is, what do I do if I do get it? And what do I do if it becomes more severe, and so on? And this is playing in the mind. And therefore, communication, events, joyful events, engagement, maybe something like a music show. Some of these things are something that we can consider. Antakshari for our employees in a virtual space are at least momentary, situations, momentary sort of releases, which allows employees to feel safe, to feel bonded, to feel together, which is what we can create in a virtual space, in a virtual setting of work. So I think better connectedness is the point I was trying to make, and I think we need to have that sense of connection with employees, irrespective of where they are and who they are. I know there are organizations where there may be one lone salesman working in a far-off district in India. And how does he connect? And what does he do? So I think these challenges are there. I think I will sort of summarize again by saying redefinition of the office, people going to work and work coming to people. I think a reconstruction of how work is done and communication and relationships, I think, are the emerging challenges for HR in terms of what they need to deal with, and for line managers and leaders equally. I think I would just reinforce the points that both my eminent colleagues have made in terms of the physical, psychological, and the economic well-being considerations that are necessary. So I think I will stop here. Thank you once again for allowing me to come in and participate in this webinar. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Sridhar, and thanks also for both the clarifications. Now, if we have some questions from the audience, we'll try to get them, and would like to pose them to you so that you can react to the questions which are raised by the audience. But before going there, I would one point which I would request a response both from Uday Kumar as well as Mr. Sridhar also is you mentioned with regard to the an entity which has to take care of its financial health and cash flows. And what we have seen, I am not just referring to microfinance sector, but overall in the economy, is that many sectors people are losing their jobs. There are a lot of pay cuts around, and enterprises say that we are helpless because there is no business and there is no financial inflow into that. In that situation, how do we maintain our human resources? So, do you think that such a scenario, how does it play out in the broader financial sector, or even in the microfinance sector in particular?
Okay, I will take this. Satish, I think we have to consider microfinance as a business here. So there are institutions might collapse. I was just reading yesterday an article about Airbnb. They built the company for last 12 years and 6 months is almost collapsed. So, but we are not in such situation. Microfinance in India is the quite strong sector, and I think rural India is quite strong. We always saw rural come back very fast all the time. So I'm definitely convinced that microfinance business is not facing its doomsday. Don't worry. I'm not really worried about that fact. But we will come back strongly. That is why I said we should not be touching the employees' cash flow issues. We should support that. There are many other areas we should work in terms of efficiencies, reducing cost, reducing time, reducing invisible expenses, and we need to survive, because our survival is dependent on in the hands of our employees. That is why I use this specific importance to keep employees' motivation high in this business. It is specific to this business.
So if you're waiting for a response from me, well, I would first of all would like to say that it is rather unfortunate that employees are getting affected. It's really very, very unfortunate, very sad that this is happening to in some organizations, some businesses. But I'm sure those businesses have considered both their short-term and their long-term, and challenges of viability, challenges of cash flow, and these are very, very considered decisions. Other than that, all I can do is speak for our own organization, where we are not in this unfortunate situation. So we have been able to manage, although we are a very small company, we also have pressures of cash flow and so on and so forth. but we have taken what I think is a slightly more mature, creative sort of a position on this. But it will be very difficult for me to comment on why some organizations are doing this. I'm sure there are very good reasons. The boards must have considered this and then taken this view. And all I can pray and wish for is for normalcy to return and these employees find opportunities, in commensurate with their skills and resources.
Agree.
Yeah. So, Subir, you would like to say something?
I think I agree with Uday sir, that MFI will be a turnaround story very fast. We have seen demand, and I don't see that this is worse than demand. This is not definitely that case, because the way things are shaping up in the last 1 month itself after we opened up, it's very promising. It's very promising, and we see the MFI sector for sure is going to recover from it very fast. Though this pandemic is going to stay for long, as Sridhar sir said. But I think we are doing enough. We are taking all the actions required to ensure that we sustain at this point in time. And as everyone said, the employee should be the last one who should be actually, or the employee ones who should be actually taken care of the first in this scenario. And employee motivation will be a very important factor for us to get back to business. And I see that happening very fast.
There is one question which says that during the lockdown period, there has been a lot of traction for the online training. And the question is that what are the challenges which trainers are facing in conducting these online sessions and with the field staff, and how are the issues being addressed between the grassroots level people and the trainers? So that's the question.
You
want to go?
Let me just. Yeah. Okay. So one is, I believe this entire upskilling, reskilling that we're talking about, or entire shift in the training mode that we're talking about, has to start from the trainers themselves. We can't expect the world to change if we don't change. The trainers, I think there is a need to look at themselves, to introspect, saying that what is that we can do, or we can change ourselves, how we can change the way of doing things. For example, e-learning, not many companies in the microfinance was actually working on the e-learning piece earlier. But now for the last, while this has started, COVID is an opportunity for us. And we should grab that opportunity. The trainers should actually go through the ways to learn, how to do, conduct e-learning programs. As I said, the modules has to be shorter. And if you can, look at a test after the module, and the trainers will come in between and talk to the people, saying that what have we learned from those modules? Are there any clarifications required on those modules or not? So we need to look at, first the trainers has to equip themselves with the ways and means to do things. Then only they can implement the same thing in the field. It is not rocket science. The whole world is doing, the IT industry has been doing it for long. For us, it is an opportunity. We should just grab the opportunity at this point in time.
Just to give the example, sir, I don't think it's a difficult, and there's no many challenges. If you have a will, we can actually do it. We used to do a kind of collaborative leadership program for our mid-line managers on a physical training, 3 days workshop with a lot of entertainment, fun, all those things. We thought what to do. Actually, we are able to do all these things online in the last 2 months. With a batch of 10 people, 4 hours a day, 4 days, infrequent days, we're able to, in the same impactful training, we are able to do it. So I don't think this is a challenge, including the fun and game and all those things on an online platform. So I think it is, end of the day, it's a motivation of your employee to participate and execute, and then to get trained well. So that's important. How management supports that. So it is positive.
Yeah. Thanks. Mr. Sridhar, there is one question specifically addressed to you. It says that we think that the psychological support and empathy are very important aspects HR should focus to prevent insecurity. What are your thoughts on this?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. That's the point I was starting with when I started by saying it's a psychological, physical, and the economic well-being of the employee that needs protection. The only correction I would make is it is not just HR. I think every line manager must be responsible and must carry the baton in terms of the psychological safety of every employee. I think it is very, very important. So constant engagement, constant communication, ability to have breakout meetings on any subject, and keep the employee attention going, which is the center point of engagement. So how do we keep the the employee engaged? So I think it is paramount, absolutely paramount.
Just to add to Sridhar sir, I believe a lot of times we have seen when a line manager starts a discussion with his team member, he starts straight away to the point saying that why have we not done this or why have we done this. Just take out your time for 2 minutes. Ask him, how are you doing? How is your family doing? What are your children doing? How is the health? How is things at your location? These are small things. How we engage with people. It need not be only transactional. It can also talk about what is happening in the world. I think as Sridhar said, it's not about HR who can build the connect. The most powerful connectors are the managers, are the people, are the managers of their own teams. They can do wonders. It can actually shift the way they have been doing things in a more, I think, empathetic manner, or a more human manner. I think then probably things will become much better going forward.
Yeah. Subir, there is one question specifically for you. It says that the MFI industry is already challenged with high attrition and has a mass recruitment model. COVID-19 is going to impact both. Attrition would increase and there will be challenges in recruitment. How should we address this?
So I'm rather hopeful about it. Attrition is not increased. Attrition has decreased. Let me tell you that the facts for the last 3 months is attrition has decreased, and we are very happy with that because there are not plenty of jobs in the market available. So people, the opportunities were there earlier. The opportunity will come down now. There will be not much of jobs. So attrition is going to increase, probably stable, not will be rather going down. But yes, in terms of hiring, there will be challenges because getting the people from those tier 3, tier 4 cities, to go to those branches and work, there will be a fear factor playing on their mind. As there's a rightly said, the families has to be comfortable in letting the people, their child or their husband to go out to work, which is around 150 kilometers from their home, and whether they don't know that they're in red district or a green district. So those challenges will be there. But I think important is that we talk positive. We show them that there are also 100 people working there. It's not that you are the only one, and give them confidence that we are doing all measures possible to ensure that you are secure. I think that communication, will be very key to get people on board. And for the corporate population, I think Sridhar said it's a very important point, saying that the joining will be virtual. People not, if a guy is required in Delhi, and if he's a technical guy, he can work from Bombay also. He can work from Chennai also for the timing, especially for the support functions and the backend functions. May not be possible for the front-end guys in MFI, but yes, for example, for us, we're only working at head office or 30% manpower as on today. 70% are working from home because Delhi is closed. We can't get people to come to office. But we're working fine. So that's how things are.
Yeah, there's one question with regard to work from home. It says that since work comes home, should organizations equip home with some office space, not coffee machines, of course, but reliable internet connection and other communication equipment, table, office chair, etc.
You want me to go first?
Yes.
Maybe I can also. I think it is important.
Sure.
It has been.
Why don't Uday sir?
Yeah. I will tell because no, of course, microfinance, as we said, may not be equipped for work from home, but still, whatever the percentage you need to, you may have to execute. I think you need to enable those work from home easily, whether it's a laptop or the chair requirement or a Wi-Fi data package or UPS. I think if at all those expenses Either you have to provide or you have to reimburse. I think we have to facilitate that, no doubt about it. I think to that extent I can tell.
I just want to build on that by just saying,
yeah.
You see, the way we have seen it now is that it is a temporary phenomenon. And therefore, we will return to the so-called normal in short time. So therefore, this whole challenge of the technology, the whole challenge of ergonomics at home, private spaces, all that has not emerged. But as people are saying, and as epidemiologists and doctors are saying, COVID is something you have to live with, and this is the new normal. And if that is the reality, I think the point the questioner is raising is going to be very, very relevant. And I think organizations and businesses have to respond to this issue very clearly and in a very constructive manner of saying, we will provide the support.
Agree.
Yeah, Mr. Sridhar, probably this is question directed towards you. It says that what role HR tech companies can play in solving the challenges which MFIs are facing in the current scenario, as was raised during the discussion.
Sorry, come again, sir. What role? I'm sorry, I didn't get.
HR tech companies can play in solving the challenges which the MFIs are facing.
I don't know what we can do in terms of the frontline workers, other than giving them some technology support like tablets or something which they can record. I don't know if any with any self-help group or any small collective this thing that they have to visit. Can connection be possible? I don't know. I think over a period of time, maybe it is possible. To establish this, because I think India is getting more and more penetrative in terms of internet, and Reliance Jio and people like this are, I think, sort of available in terms of connection. And WhatsApp is creating a huge revolution in terms of connectivity. So I think it is going to be possible, because we are talking about connectivity, and we are talking about how do we keep in touch with our customers. How do we ensure that they not only receive the loans but also pay back, and so on and so forth. I think I don't have a specific answer to suggest that so and so will be the technology solution, but I think if I look at the direction, if I look at the way technology is moving, I think it is going to be possible. Is my submission. I can recheck this with some technology experts and come back.
I would like to add a couple of points here, if Satish agrees. Now, MFI employees, particularly who are the front line, it's actually one more bottom-up pyramid. So if you say population is a bottom-up pyramid, MFI customer at the bottom of pyramid, if I draw another pyramid of employees, these employees at the bottom of pyramid. So about one size fit to all kind of English training will not help them actually. The training, whether it's motivational or it's interactive, it has to be in their language, at their place. They can actually get on their laptop or mobile. Can create a big difference actually, including the training, including the interactive sessions, whether it is a formation group or it's a FAQs to answer their customers, or it could be any other training. So that would help. I think tech can enable that. Today, most of them are in English or some kind of language, whereas MFIs are working in all 20-30 languages across country, and the ability of these employees to understand English is quite low. So local language can definitely help. I think multi-language skills in terms of training building will enable them. I think tech only can enable that. So that probably will help.
Yeah, the one question, which of course I think Subir had partly answered. It again says that the biggest challenge in the current year would be retention, because increments and growth may not happen. How can we manage this and still be cost conscious?
So my take on this is slightly different. I keep on telling people a career of people is around 35-40 years. 1 year will not break a person. So we have to be a little patient, as Uday sir said. We should not look at short term and 1 year increment not happening, or bonus not getting paid. It will depend on organization to organization. Some organization will pay, some cannot because of the cash flows and all. But we need to be we need to commit to the fact that it is not a short term phenomenon. It's not going to impact your life for 1 year will not change your life. 1 year not impact your career. It's very important that you stay put with the organization in these times, and I'm sure every management would like to reward the people who stay put with the organization in difficult times. That's something I would like to say in this particular.
Maybe I can add. Maybe I can. Sure, sir. Please carry on.
Yeah, please.
Okay, I was just trying to add what Subir says. It's a short-term phenomena. There are some managements have taken decision to give a post facto. They said long-term bonus given after 1 year or 6 months, increment after 1 year or 6 months. I think such kind of at least promise that let us turn around first. You will get this benefit. It can be a long-term incentive. It could be a long-term kind of ESOP or something. I think there are many ways. You can compensate for the gap of this year if you have a cash flow challenge. It can be a post facto. I mean, maybe after 6 months, after 1 year. So let us motivate to turn around. All of us be part of it, and you will get the benefit once we turn around. I think there are opportunities if you can work around. That is what my view on this.
Absolutely, sir.
Sridhar, would you like to comment?
I was coming from a slightly wider perspective. As it is, we are having a demand recession in the country, by and large, in almost all sectors, right? We are all aware of it. In addition, we have this COVID. So I think the challenge of retention is not the issue today. Actually, we will have it will be very easy to retain because the opportunities outside are limited. So therefore, I think retention is not the challenge. What will be the challenge is the inspiration, motivation, engagement of the employees that you have, which in a different setting, because it is now moved from a physical setting to a virtual setting. So I think I just wanted to bring that little bit of change in emphasis in terms of the issue around retention.
Yeah, I agree.
Thanks.
Maybe I will just want to add a color to it, a bit different. See, in MFIs, we may find a demotivation factor at the frontline soldiers, thinking that the seniors are sitting at home and driving us. The area manager sitting in home or a division manager sitting in home, he drives from home, but whereas we are sitting in field. I think there has to be a balance. It is specific for microfinance, it's not for other institutions. That this kind of perception management also is very, very important. That also a demotivating factor a lot of time. So I mean, just to be conscious about it.
Yeah. So thanks.
So also visit the field.
Correct.
Yeah.
It must be a show and tell.
Yes. There's one question for Mr. Sridhar. Yes. Would you expect that HR strategies should provide for such disruptions as these, and how to manage people in the interest of business continuity, so that people know that the organization is well prepared and will not get unnecessarily perturbed or disturbed?
In principle, yes, I agree. I think the current provocation is something which I think humanity is dealing with. It is not something that we could have been prepared for, and therefore it's something extraordinary which is challenging all of us across the world. So I think, but these experiences, whether it is demonetization or whether it is the floods or whether it is other natural calamities, I think are making organizations more and more resilient with their business continuity risk management plans. I think Uday sir covered this shortly by saying we have to build resilient organizations. So I think organizations are becoming resilient. This is a completely new experience. We have not had this before, and therefore it's taking us some time to cope with this and find our new equilibrium and new balance. It will take some time, but I think we are almost getting used to it now at the end of 3 or 4 months. And I think we'll now find it difficult if we have to physically go back to work. I think that is the situation now.
Yeah, this is one question. I think probably it has occurred somewhere. The question is that how does one handle a situation where the branch has opened, but the staff is stranded across a different state or region for more than a month? How can issues relating to salary and payments, other things can be resolved? I don't know
So
whether
let me
such
just take
issues
this, because this is a pretty practical experience that we have faced in our organization. I think the way to handle this is that give them the comfort of that guy, saying that if you're stranded, your salary will not be taken out. You'll be paid the salary. That's the first comfort we should give to the person. Second is, if there's a branch in that location or nearby location in that state, can you move that guy to that branch? Instead of him being stranded elsewhere. At times there has been cases where people are stuck in red zones and they're stuck for 2-3 days. Give them the comfort. Say you take a guest house or somewhere, stay for 4-5 days. Company will reimburse you that amount. So those I think these are things which happens without any preparation. They come they come as and when it comes. We need to be ready to handle those situations as and when it comes. As HR needs to be proactive enough to think through it and things, and what is that we can do to ensure that guy, as I said in my deliberation earlier, that you need to put yourself in the shoes of the person who is there. And the moment you start putting yourself in the shoes of the person, you'll start answering the questions that he's raising. And the answers will automatically come.
Maybe I also agree with that. I think in each case, the management need to take a position and support that employee, because it is not his problem, it is management's problem. That's all. So long we take that problem at ours, it will get resolved.
And there's one question, of course, I think partly it was answered also. It says that organizations are, it doesn't specifically tell about MFIs, but it says that organizations are expecting that employees also will share the pain of disruption of business through a reduced salary or a postponed increment. Is it a fair expectation?
And I think not really, but yes, it is, in a human sense, it is a fair expectation. Equitas or equitability, or whatever the word is, I think is what is being looked for. And I think a lot of leadership teams, many managements have taken bigger cuts at the higher level and smaller cuts at the lower level, in accordance with what they can afford and what the take-home discretionary income should be. So I think it is already being done. I think it'll be rather insensitive that senior management doesn't make any sacrifice, and all of it is done by the staff in the lower end of the organization. I think it'll be very insensitive.
No, the management has to lead by example in such a decision, if that decision is taken, and the last one should be the guys at the field. We should ensure that they are not touched, as Uday said, because they are the people who actually taking that tough call to go and work in those tough conditions. So in most cases, management lead by example in such things and all.
While we say that it's important to protect the interest of the employee, in the bad time, if the company is not performing, whether impacting employees, it is sad, it is insensitive, or it should be sensitive is correct. But in the meantime, if company survival in question, I think it's question we need to share. If company grows well, if they don't share, will employee keep quiet? So when the company is doing very well, whether to be shared or not. Similarly, when company is facing the challenge, I think the pain may have to be shared. While the employees need to be last, but not necessarily it cannot be shared. It's not possible. The only thing what I'm suggesting is always take that step as a last opportunity instead of a first opportunity. So I think if end of the day, if company survives, there is a benefit eventually to the entire community, entire employees. So I think we have to share, but as far as possible, that impact should be last, not the first. That's the only thing I would say.
Thank you. There is one question, I think all of you can answer this. It says that there could be a big laundry list of measures, but what are the top 3 measures which can be taken to motivate and retain the employees?
Shabir.
So
Yeah.
I can talk about a very important measure to motivate employees is that acknowledge the smallest stuff achievements that they do. These times seldom what happens, we are so busy in managing the COVID, managing the challenges of what is happening in the economy or in the business. We seldom forget to appreciate or acknowledge the guy who's actually working in the field. A smallest stuff achievement, make it big for him. Make him feel that yes, I have been, I am a soldier and I have been acknowledged by the organization. I think that work wonders for those people. And as I said earlier, also constant communication, constant weekly HR has to communicate, the HR guys, the line managers has to communicate them on a constant basis. I think these are small 2 things if you can do, that will take care of the motivation of the employees.
Yeah, if you want to ask me, I would go with what Subir says, including employee first attitude, then your constant transparent communication, and I mean with as much motivation, and put your shoes put your legs in their shoes and empathize with them, particularly at the low level of employees. Seniors definitely they will be able to understand, but the transparent communication is most important with them.
I just add one more. I completely agree with the 2 points that both the panelists have mentioned. I would also like to highlight just one more. Focus on security too, psychological security.
Agreed.
Very true, sir.
Yes.
And I think, sir, another thing which is also important here is that HR should have a ear to listen to the people. Listening skills at this time will be paramount for HR, and for all the managers also. We need to empathize. We need to listen to our people. We can't just say that no, I don't have time to do that. I think that will be key to motivate the people.
Yes.
There is one general question to Mr. Sridhar. It says that will there be any cultural shifts in organizations because of COVID?
It's a very, very big question and a very big topic, talking about culture. I really am at a loss as to how to respond to this question. I think there will be some of the shared behaviors. If culture is represented by shared behaviors, which is what it is, that a society, an organization, a group of people have shared behaviors which denotes their culture, then I think over a period of time, if we continue in the manner we are doing now, I think there will be some shifts in terms of culture, and we have to then choose what are those behaviors that are most appropriate for an organization and a business to further its ability to be of value to its stakeholders. So I think that is the question that will arise. But if you ask me, what are those culture coordinates at this point in time, I would, very honestly and frankly say, well, one has to think about it.
So I can just add to Sridhar sir. Sorry, yeah.
No, I'm finished. I'm done. Thank you.
So I can just add to sir to you what you're saying. The biggest cultural shift is a mindset shift that that you have to come to office every day and punch in at 9 o'clock in the office. That will be a biggest cultural shift that we have to undergo. So that no, you can still work from home and complete your task for the functions that will actually work from home. So those kinds of cultural shifts will definitely happen. That's even in MFI to some extent will happen, not at the front line, but definitely at the back-end teams. Efficiencies will have to be seen very closely. These cultural shifts definitely going to happen for sure.
Trust is going to emerge as a very important factor.
Absolutely, yeah.
Our ability to trust each other, both the employee as well as the employer, is I think very, very going to be significant, because all of us under some degree of insecurity and stress.
Agreed.
Yeah.
So we are coming to the close of our webinar. I would request all of you to take a couple of minutes to make the closing remarks on the basis of what all you have spoken and also what all the questions which have been raised. As at the beginning, we can start with Subir and go to the and then close with Mr. Sridhar. Subir.
So for me, it is very difficult times, challenging times. But I think we should always be hopeful, saying that this is an opportunity for us. We should look at this challenge as an opportunity. MFI, while the challenges in the field will continue to be there, but if we can translate that into opportunity, then we have a lot of things to do. And for the HR fraternity, people who are already listening today, saying that how can you, you are already in 2030. If you ask me, 2020 has become 2030, or 10 years ahead, you have already gone. So how, if you are already in 2030, you'll start thinking from 2030 onwards. That perspective has to change. Think positively, think for a future, what is there that you can do for future, have a futuristic approach and be positive. That's it. Thank you.
Uday.
Yeah, for me, think about your employees every day morning. Think about your long-term vision and think about the current crisis. Learn that this crisis will only teach me and make me strong, make the organization strong. And such hurdles may come much more also in your way. So you should be ready to create such, to face such situations. You must have a strong, motivated, loyal employees. And you keep building that, these hurdles can be crossed easily. I think it's a constant is to have the motivated, loyal employees. Work around that continuously. This kind of hurdles are always there. You keep crossing hurdles and have your vision towards your long-term goal. It is possible. This also will pass away like this.
Mr. Sridhar.
It'll take a little longer, maybe.
Yeah, maybe that's fine.
So to me, it is recognize and acknowledge that we are living in a certain sense of change. First, I think as individuals and human beings, we need to recognize and acknowledge this to ourselves. And then I think we need to do a reset in terms of ways of working, reset in terms of how we are going to contribute, reset in terms of what to get in terms of rewards and punishments, reset in terms of our future. I think there's a whole lot of reset that needs to get done. And HR and line managers need to help employees doing this reset.
So,
thank you.
Thank you. And I would like to, on behalf of Sa-Dhan, I would like to thank all our panelists, the two from the practitioner side, Subir and Uday, brought a lot of institutional level perspective. And I would also like to thank Mr. Sridhar Ganesh for bringing out the entire HR perspective, not only from the sector, but from an overall global view. And this has been a very wonderful webinar in terms of inputs for the entire microfinance sector. And I would like to thank all of you on behalf of Sa-Dhan. And I would also like to thank UK government DFID for supporting this webinar series. And as listening to all of you, and especially to Mr. Uday Kumar and Subir from the microfinance sector, I am again tempted to quote what Charles Dickens begins his tale of two cities with. It was best of the times and it was worst of the times. So similarly for the microfinance sector, these may be challenging times, but these are opportune times. I think with these words, I thank all of you and bring this webinar to a close. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Pleasure.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
So can we go?
Yeah. Yes, sir.
Thank you, sir.